At this point of the offseason, all signs are pointing toward Jeff McNeil being the New York Mets starting second baseman come opening day. In this episode of the True Mets Talk podcast, we are talking about projections for Jeff McNeil and the overall second base outlook as the 2025 season approaches. Let's get into it. All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the channel. I want to welcome you all to a new look channel and a new look True Mets Talk podcast. As you all may have seen on the community tab, we are ringing in the new year with a new channel outlook, a new logo, and a new YouTube channel name. But don't worry, the content right here on this channel as it pertains to the New York Mets is not changing. For those of you all who also pay attention to the True Knicks Talk podcast and want more Knicks talk as they are having a great season, I will link my new Knicks podcast YouTube channel down in the description below. Make sure to navigate over there and subscribe. But this channel is now solely being dedicated to New York Mets content. And in this video, as was just stated, we are talking about the second base situation with Jeff McNeil. And before we talk about Jeff McNeil and the upcoming projections for him in this coming season from Steamer, as well as the other names that we have to take into consideration revolving the second base door, aka Luisangel Acuña, we need to take a look at the outlook, the previous outlook of the last couple of seasons that Jeff McNeil has had. And they are as such right here. From 2023 and 2024, you can see Jeff McNeil's numbers. And those seasons were filled with inconsistencies coming off of a career year in 2022. The main question that Mets fans have right now, I am sure, is can we see the former batting champion and can we see that version of Jeff McNeil, whether it's from 2019 or from 2022, can that version of Jeff McNeil come back into the fold, into this lineup as 2025 approaches? And with all due respect to what Jeff McNeil has accomplished in his career as a New York Met and the fantastic seasons that he put up in both 2019 and 2022, especially with that batting title, I'm not quite sure we will see that version of Jeff McNeil ever again in a Mets uniform as he is entering his age 33 season. And my reasoning for this is outside of the age factor. A lot of theories over the past couple of seasons surrounding Jeff McNeil would point to the MLB banning the shift impacting him and his performance at the plate by a wide margin, which we could only assume was the case over the past two seasons. And although he did have decent numbers at face value in 2023, again, compared to his standards and what he put up the previous season, it was not a Jeff McNeil type performance. But even more worrisome, and as we talk about and shift toward what 2025 could have in store for him in terms of the statistical value projections that Steamer has his approach changed at the plate, knowing that the shift being taken away basically has impacted him negatively? And it took me a second to just formulate that sentence here because I'm sitting here and I'm staring at the K percentage going from 10 all the way up to 14.4% from 2023 to 2024. But what's even more worrisome to me when I take a look at both of these columns is the opposite field rate and the rate that Jeff McNeil has used over the past two seasons in going the opposite way and wanting to take opposite field singles and doubles when they are given to him. Now, again, the opposite field rate, if you go back to his 2022 season, was more in line with what he produced in 2023. It was around 25.8 comparative to 25.7, as you see on your screen in 2023. But, you know, he even stated himself, Jeff McNeil stated that he did not feel at his best and he felt like he left a lot of opportunities on the table in 2023. So he himself also knew that 2023 was not up to his standards and he wanted to be better in 2024. Did he change his approach in 2024? knowing in the back of his mind that the shift was no longer there and that he should start pulling the ball more rather than taking it the opposite way. That is something that we will continue to monitor as we go through the next couple of seasons, presumably with him being in a Mets uniform. A lot of things are subject to change with the second base revolving door, as we'll take a look at here in the next couple of slides. But again, as I stated to open up this episode, I am fully expecting at this point of the offseason, with no trade happening involving Jeff McNeil's name, for him to be that starting second baseman. And all eyes for me are on both the strikeout percentage in 2025 as well as the rate of which he uses the opposite field in comparison to 2023 and 2024. Now, again, the doubles, they were there just as much in 2024 as they were in 2023. So you can't knock him there. And given that he played just about 17 games less, he was on pace to match his RBIs and probably just a little bit more so than what he did in 2023. It was, again, the last couple of seasons being the name of the game for Jeff McNeil, being inconsistent. In 2023, we saw him get off to a raging hot start. The middle months, all the way from about probably late May to early July, mid-July, were absolutely abysmal. And then he ended the 2023 lost season on a fantastic note. And then conversely, for 2024, he actually had such a rough time in the first half, but as we all know, he caught fire in the later parts of July, going into the whole month of August, and then the unfortunate injury, the wrist fracture that he sustained, that kept him out most of September going into the playoffs, only to see him back for a couple of appearances in the league championship series. Now, Jeff McNeil is going to be the starting second baseman. Whether we want it or not is a different question. Is a different argument to be had. Like I mentioned, I would much rather have Luisangel Acuña be the everyday second baseman to open up 2025. But I understand that the Mets are kind of pigeonholed here in terms of not being able to send a good enough package to offload the salary or just open up this roster spot with how many years he has attached to his name on the contract. So again, if we're talking about this situation in that light, let's take a look at what Jeff McNeil is projected and how he could stack up in this Mets lineup for 2025. Now, these are the numbers right here directly from the Steamer algorithm. They do a great job. There's a bunch of different projection metrics out there. There's Zips. I know Fangraphs does their own, and so on and so forth. Different websites and different outlets have their different algorithms to try to project as accurately as possible with what these players have produced in previous seasons, what they might produce and what might be on the horizon. This is the outlook of what they are projecting for Jeff McNeil. 139 games, a 271 batting average, so kind of getting back into that groove of what he produced in the entirety of 2023. 11 home runs, which is basically smack in the middle of what he posted from 2023 to 2024. It was 10 versus 12. Now they're projecting him at 11, 60 RBIs, a 331 on base percentage, and a 12.7 K rate in 2025. Again, this is eerily similar to what he produced in 2023. And if we were calling that a down year for Jeff McNeil, I know a lot of fans aren't going to be happy with these numbers on your screen, but you would be happier with these numbers than what he posted clearly in 2024. And Mets fans, if you are thinking, oh man, here we go again with this Jeff McNeil playing every day for the full 162 game season when the Mets are trying to be championship contenders, bringing on Juan Soto, and are supposed to sort of live up to what they did last season and go beyond that into the series that matters the most, which is the World Series, I'm completely on board with you, especially given the down numbers and the inconsistencies that we've seen from Jeff McNeil over the past two seasons. And that leads me to the question of what happens and what are the Mets thinking and planning on doing with Luisangel Acuña to start the season up. There's some speculation that he could be one of the last bench spots and being that backup second baseman to Jeff McNeil. And maybe Jeff McNeil, if he gets off to a struggle-filled start to the 2025 season, it's going to be Luisangel Acuña's position to lose. Or on the flip side of things, as we've heard from a lot of different outlets and reporters now, that there's a real possibility Acuña starts the 2025 season back in AAA, which would mean the Mets have to backfill a bench spot that is capable of playing second base, at least on a semi-regular basis, depending on what happens with Jeff McNeil. Again, I think that the notion that we are starting to portray here, at least I'm trying to portray, is that, yes, Jeff McNeil could be the opening day starter, but there are a lot of risks in trusting him and not having a viable backup option. And I'm pretty sure that David Stearns knows that all too well, given the numbers of Jeff McNeil in these past two seasons. And they are not going to go into this season without a viable backup option. If Acuña is in AAA to start the season, could that backup option be, yes, Mr. OMG himself, Jose Iglesias? Is there a reunion on the table between the Mets and Iglesias? We haven't heard much on this front. We know that Iglesias hired Scott Boras to represent him in his negotiation for his next deal with whatever team it may be this offseason, and he's coming off of a spectacular, almost improbable performance last season for the New York Mets when he got the call up to the Major League squad early on into the season and just ran with that opportunity. For those of you all wondering, again, going back to Luisangel Acuña, what his steamer projections look like, I'm not going to get into the finer statistics of it all, but just know that they definitely disrespected him. They only have him appearing in 60 games for the New York Mets. So again, that could be a situation where they start him off in AAA and bring him back up midway through the season, depending on what happens with McNeil and or Iglesias, if they bring Iglesias back. Or maybe they are going to, again, put Acuña on the opening day roster, but just have him be a young guy that is soaking up all this information and experience from the bench and potentially getting a few starts here and there when McNeil needs an off day. I don't know how they're going to go about doing this. Again, there's so many what ifs in this episode alone, but here is what Steamer has for Jose Iglesias. And if you can look at these numbers and compare them to what he put up in 2024, clearly the algorithm is predicting a major regression from Jose Iglesias. And it's almost impossible, given where he's at in his career, to sort of replicate what he did in 2024 for the New York Mets. But if you're trying to sell me on him coming back to Queens to be a platoon type player, and in the worst case scenario, if McNeil just absolutely stinks it up, be the everyday starter until Acuña comes back up and is ready to make an immediate impact, I'm going to take these numbers all day long. We know he doesn't have much power. 8 home runs, okay, we'll take it. 271 batting average, an OBP that's around 310, 48 RBIs, and a 95 WRC plus. Again, just far behind what he posted in 2024, but you would take these numbers as a stopgap second baseman, depending on what happens and how this situation plays out. So Mets fans, please let me know, between McNeil and Acuña, who would you prefer? First and foremost, I know that there are two sides of this fan base as it pertains to second base. Those who want to see Luisangel Acuña versus those who actually believe in Jeff McNeil still, in him getting back to 2022 form. And also, let me know if you think Acuña has a real shot at starting in the minor leagues, and if there is a possibility of bringing back Jose Iglesias. I think there is, if the Mets are committed to sending Acuña back down and not having him be a part of the opening day roster. Again, smash those thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel. It's your boy CP. I will see you all on a future episode. Let's go Mets. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.